Hey, ladies and gentlemen, everybody that's out there, welcome to the Amputate to Elevate Success podcast, where transformation takes center stage, baby. I'm your host, John Register, two-time Olympic trials qualifier, combat veteran, amputee, Paralympic silver medalist, certified professional speaker, and 2024 top 50 global inspirational business leadership speaker by Real Leaders Magazine, if you can believe that one. Wow. Amputate to Elevate Success podcast takes a deep dive into the lives of senior C-suite leaders and inspirational influencers who've turned adversity into advantage. They've turned their obstacles into opportunities. In other words, what did these inspirational leaders have to amputate in order to elevate their success? Amputate to Elevate Success podcast uncovers the raw, the real stories behind the corporate facade. We're talking about challenges, pitfalls, and most importantly, the victorious turnarounds that define true leadership. Prepare to be inspired to act and transform your obstacles into opportunities. So let's amputate, innovate, and elevate right here, right now. Today I have, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I can't believe you said yes. Yes, I can, because he's just that type of guy. First, remember to follow by clicking on the notification bell, download it, share with your friends. Everybody loves the community, so let's have community together. Amputate to Amplify and Elevate Success podcast is brought to you by Inspired Communications International, where we work with business leaders who are ready to hurdle adversity, amputate fear, and embrace a new normal mindset to win the medals in their lives. I am thrilled to introduce our next guest on the Amputate to Elevate Success podcast. He is a powerhouse of inspiration and impact with a story that takes him from the projects of Brooklyn, become a national best-selling author, and a high-energy motivator. Recognized for his profound insights on youth engagement, he has been featured at the White House, y'all. Personally acknowledged by President Obama. He has collaborated with the NCCEP, national conferences, and been a dynamic presenter at various Gear Up events. Inc. magazine celebrated him as a high-energy motivator, naming him to their prestigious 30 under 30 list of top American entrepreneurs, alongside visionaries like Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg. Essence magazine hailed him as America's top young speaker. I mean, it just goes on and on. His influence extends beyond to major publications like the New York Times, Business Week, Forbes. Look, as a professional speaker, he has touched the lives of over 200,000 students across 48 states, 5 countries. Beyond his professional accomplishments, he loves to dance. He has performed at Madison Square Garden, and his wedding dance video has captured over 3 million viewers on YouTube. But I have known him as the Unicorn Man for co-creating one of my favorite speaker feedback tools called Talkadot. If you want to talk a lot, you better use Talkadot. So get ready to be inspired by this young man, his incredible journey and dynamic energy in today's episode. Please welcome to the Amputate to Elevate Success podcast, the man recognized by President Obama, the one who performed at Madison Square Garden and danced so well that he outshuffled a squirrel in Central Park and in Harlem, the one who loves a good Rudy Tooty, fresh and fruity. This is Arel Moody. Welcome to the show, my brother.
Listen, the balance of the incredible timbre of your voice, the way that you can execute the spoken word, and the way that you just did that bio, that gave me chills, man. I was like, who are you talking about? Oh, man, that's me. It's crazy. Anyway, so I just want to say thank you so much for creating the space to have these kinds of conversations, because as everyone knows, I'm just giving you your flowers right before we start. You're one of the top people in this game. You've inspired some of the biggest audiences, biggest places. Your heart is so pure. So I just want to give you your flowers even before we begin, because it's an honor being your podcast presence, my brother.
Thank you, my friend. I always start my podcasts with one question. That question is, what have you had to amputate to elevate your success?
Yeah. There's a really strange phenomenon that I'm sure I'm not the only one that's experienced. That's very weird, but potentially very common. Is for me, growing up in the projects in Brooklyn, the more and more success, for lack of a better term, that I've experienced, I had to struggle with feeling less and less connected to like the streets like I once was. And it's this extremely weird push and pull where it's like, I want to be the American dream. I want to start from nothing and make something and grow. But then as you start growing and as you start buying houses in the suburbs and playing bocce ball and snowboarding and doing all these things that you never thought you would ever do in your adult life, there is an element of like, oh, am I not hood anymore? Am I not? Have I forgotten what it's like to be that? So, I think what happens is when you have that pull trying to go up, but then you also have this pull trying to keep you in a certain, whether it's mind state or physical state, and eventually becomes a certain economic state. I had to amputate that being successful was not turning my back on who I was and where I came from. It actually is the greatest thing that I could do. And I always felt this fear that the more and more I did certain things and accomplished certain things, that I would be seen less and less as someone who's relatable and less as someone who understands the grind. Because it's not like I'm Jay-Z successful. It's not like I'm like, you know, like the pinnacle of success, like nothing to something. But I am very proud of certain accomplishments, but I also felt shame in those same accomplishments. So amputating that almost survivor remorse or, you know, getting out feeling was a really big thing because I definitely noticed that in the past I have self-sabotaged just to prove I still know what it's like to be, you know, broke or from the streets or, you know, whatever word you want to use to do that. So I think that that growth is important, but it takes some level of amputation of a past self to get there.
See, everybody, that's why I adore this man because I've had multiple conversations with some of the young athletes that have been in the community who have come from impoverished areas and have made it. They've gone on to play in not necessarily the NBA, but in major countries around the world on their sports teams. And that's one of the biggest questions they have. How do I still kind of keep my cards while I've elevated? I've gone to college, but my buddies didn't. And so I have a different mindset around this. How do I stay and keep that going? And sometimes you have to amputate those thoughts. And I think that's the first thing, that just because you're there doesn't mean that you don't forget where you've come from and the foundation that built who you are. But I will tell you, Arel,
Mm,
I went back to Chicago, where I grew up on the West Side, Oak Park, Illinois, West Side, right across Austin Boulevard.
mm.
And I went to go see my parents. I was doing a speech downtown, had a nice cushy hotel room, and I took the L train down the West Side, and it was good. I had a great time because it was like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But when I came back at 8 o'clock that night, I had lost my card, brother.
Mm.
I was like, "Where am I? I am no longer a part of this."
I
I
don't
was
swim in
moving
these
away from
oceans
the
no more.
door.
These
I was,
waters is
you know,
choppy.
taking my watch off. My rain's going off. I'm like, dang,
No, that's you know, and it's
it's real.
interesting. There's a certain moment, you know, and that might be like a very a friend of mine calls these mental tattoos, where these memories that kind of are affixed into our psyche. And I think all of us who have experienced something similar to that, where it's like you're in a certain place, you get out. I still know how to navigate these waters, but then you start realizing, but I don't be swimming in these waters like I used to. I'm not like I don't want to I don't want to swim in these waters, but I know how to navigate, but I don't want
I
to
know
swim it.
navigate.
You know, yeah, yeah. I get that. I get that deeply.
I took my wife, beautiful brother I have. He's an amazing guy, and so I was over his place on like on the west side, right? And
Mm.
so it's like one of these homes you go, it's one way in, one way out. And my wife is, look, she's from the country, and I took her over there, and so we're going to see my friend, and he's like, I think I'll just stay in the car. I said, you want to stay in the car here?
This is
I
not what
didn't want to go with you. So
that's a lose-lose scenario for that
that's just,
person. They're like, I'm
we're
not
not
sure
staying
which
in
is
the
a safer
car.
bet. But you know what? There is always this fear. There was this fear that, I would hear this phrase, and it was this phrase that kind of felt like almost a kryptonite, if you will, which is like, oh, you don't know what it's like no more.
Right.
Or, you ain't you not down with it. It's like, oh, you Hasidity now. There's certain phrases that you kind of are like, well, no one's ever gonna say that about me. But then you kind of realize, like, why do I work so hard? Like, I live in the suburbs. My children are growing up, and I love our neighborhood. It's a wonderful neighborhood. I always say that you're in a nicer neighborhood when you get the courtesy wave. So when you're in inner city or lower income, everyone keeps to themselves, head down. You go from point A to point B. You don't bother nobody. When you go to nicer neighborhoods, if someone just sees you, they just wave at you. You don't know them, they don't know you. They're driving by, they give you the courtesy wave, you wave back. And I
That's a
remember
country too.
when I moved into this, I was like, man, this is a strange, like everyone's waving at you. Like
Right.
I mean, it was my vibe for sure. But the whole point is you want your kids, you want to elevate so that your kids can elevate and then they can elevate past you and every generation is better than the next. And but there is a weird psychological amputation of that feeling that you're not turning your back, you're actually elevating
Yeah.
when you do that.
You brought something up in that which is going to take me down a whole different path of this line of
Mm,
questions that I had for you because I think it's relevant. I think it's important for folks to hear, and that is, let's take this, kind of from the streets, what we're just talking about, to in the business community.
mm,
And so, one of the things I share with audiences that have to make a commitment to a new vision that they have elements that hold them back, elements like other people believing for them what they can or cannot do,
mm.
often based on what they believe they could or could not do if they were in their situation, or societal imprints that normalize some things. So, in your opinion, where does that come from? Where does um, that ingrained sense that I have to prove myself
Mhm.
to who, number one, or that when I am in a situation where other people are trying to dictate for me who they are and put me into their world, where do you think that comes from us to
Yeah.
respond to that?
Yeah. One is what's caught, not what's taught, right? So no one ever sits you down and says, you can't get too successful now because you're gonna lose your, like no one ever sits you down and teaches you that, but it's caught. It's the way that people make fun of successful people. Oh, that rich person's probably a bad person, or they're probably cheating on their wife, or they're probably unhappy, or they have a drug addiction. Like there's these things that you hear, oh, like they're trying to take those people take advantage of folks like us so they can get ahead, and you're like, well, I never want to take advantage of people. Like I never want to like have a drug addiction or something like that. So I think you catch just through whatever societal norms you might have been in the past, through turns of the phrase, a facial expression, a tonality change, you just catch that there's something there. Where I think this comes from is this kind of human element that I believe to be true, that people inherently, and not all people, this is not all people, but there's a large group of people enough that it exists, that people want to see you do well, but not much better than them if they were equal to you at one point,
Mm,
right? And what I mean by that is like if someone like, I don't know, LeBron James is better than me in basketball, I'm like, of course he's better than me in basketball. He's LeBron James. We were never equal ever in the game of basketball. He's always been significantly more skilled than I'll ever be, even though I enjoy playing the sport. However, if I have a friend that me and me are like neck and neck and we're really, really good and we battle on the courts back and forth with one another, and then all of a sudden one day he starts killing me and I can't keep up with him, and then he starts getting on the travel teams and I'm not getting on the teams, and he's starting getting a, there's this like twinge of jealousy that is a very natural emotion that kicks in. Now, some of us never have it, which good for you, you're lucky. But for the rest of us who are normal oxygen breathing, water drinking people, we've got to learn to kind of elevate our mindset to go, no, 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 I don't want to be jealous. I want to support that. I want to care. And that takes a mental effort. So whenever anyone, if someone is listen to this who's an event planner, and you normally have 300 people that come to your events, and you have a colleague that has 300 people that come to their events, and you're constantly having conversations, and all of a sudden they start getting 700 and 800 people going to their events, but now you got 250 or 275, so you're still in the same neck and neck neighborhood, but your counterpart has. Then you start going, well, what are you doing different? And then maybe you try to find out, like, well, maybe they're not doing anything different. Then you start doubting yourself. Well, maybe it's me and it's
Right,
not the
right,
thing.
right.
And it takes us down this negative rabbit hole. And we've got to actually, that's why I think it's so important for folks like you to come into organizations and speak, because I love how you talk about overcoming these mental barriers and going after these things that are important, because every single level we get to, there's a new devil, as the saying goes. And there's a new
Yeah,
little
right.
voice of doubt that jumps into our head. Now, if we're the ones excelling, we typically feel really good. But if we notice our counterparts excelling past us, it's more of a reflection on how we feel about our own self, and mentally training ourselves to support and to learn and to grow and to accept fate. Sometimes delays are not denials, as the saying goes. I think is an active learning thing and not something that happens to most people naturally.
That's so spot on. And I was actually envisioning my whole life right now, right? In this one particular moment of time that I'm in, 5 years into my company, and the press was on in these first 6 months for me. I mean, I'm always transparent. And the bookings weren't there. And so I made a shift, and all those doubts started coming in. Well, is it me? Is it the message? And it's all those things that have been working like for three, and I know how to shift and pivot and all that, and it just wasn't coming. So I really did some assessments. I did some work to understand that, oh yeah, you just took a role as an acting CEO.
Mm,
You ran a $5.5 million organization, and so
mm,
you didn't have time to really invest all this
mm,
into your business, and so it took a little hit, which I knew was probably going to come up. But because of that, now you can have another unicorn type hat. You're not just the Paralympic athlete or the Olympic class athlete, combat veteran, but now you're an executive CEO, and you can really say that things do keep you up at night, right? And so that is what I leaned into to use all that to begin direct booking. But it took a little bit of time to see if that was even going to work. And now, yeah, now we got like for 2025, we got 10 engagements that we're doing. And so it's just that you have to work through that sequence, that process. And I love how you said that about if somebody's just right there with you and then all of a sudden you see them going, you got that,
yeah.
yeah, you're a little, why you, what's going on with you, man?
And it's easy, and I'll say something. You said something I just want to double click on because I think it's worth exploring. Is it's an active process. It's
Right.
not a like, oh, okay, let me just figure it out and it just naturally happens. It's like, no, I got to do some reflection, and there's a emotional roller coaster with that reflection, because first you've got to look at yourself, and again, I think it's always easy to be confident and well spoken and have belief in yourself when things are going your way, right?
Right.
When the wind's behind you pushing you forward and you're like, hey, it's just I'm out here crushing whatever it is that I'm doing. It's super easy to be like, believe in yourself, care about others. It's very easy. I think the true testament is when the wind goes into the front and starts pushing us. And we've got to go back to the training of like, well, what made John the Olympian? What made him the veteran? What made him that CEO caliber person? Like, what are the qualities? And then reapply those in a brand new world, in a brand new identity. Because a lot of times we know how to do one thing, and then when that one thing changes, we sometimes forget the lessons of the one thing. And I think what you just said and what's so powerful about that is you went back to the lessons, not just the role, right? Not just the Olympian role, but you went back and like, well, what's that take? And I think that is the element whenever we're trying to grow a business or grow membership or grow anything. We've got to go back into those lessons. And oftentimes, what we need is already there. We just haven't looked.
Yeah. I would expand just lessons and tactics,
Mm,
right? So I also did some things, right?
mm,
I just went down to Tampa to do a networking event that was there that I got invited for, and I did it the way I try to do networking is I find the one person because that I have a strong relationship with, and that person introduces me to around the room, right?
mm,
Instead of me having to try to figure it all out. and I do that for others as well. So you are one of the most giving people I've encountered with your wisdom, with your insights that you have into professional speakers, or whether it's to help event planners, or whether it's your own team that you pour and gift into. Where does that spirit come from in you?
You know, I think it comes from like if I had to like articulate it in any way, is I know what it feels like to want and people won't give. I remember very, very strongly emotionally when I was just like in my early 20s, getting started as an entrepreneur and going up to certain people being like, you've got the keys. Like, I want to drive the car. Like, show me what the keys are. And people either, saying no or giving you half answers, or when someone gives you an answer, but they're really holding back the full answer. So it's kind of like there's some kind of secret sauce there and they're not sharing. And I remember just feeling so frustrated and so irritated by it. And I remember making a promise to myself that if I ever got to a place where people wanted advice from me, I would never hold back because I know what it feels like to feel that frustration. When I do speaking engagements, to this day, I've been a professional speaker for 18 years now. I stick around until every question is answered, every photo is taken. If people are kind enough to ask for autographs, I'll sign every single one. Like I always build my schedule around. I never want someone to be like, "Oh, he thought he was too good for me," or "He had a question and he didn't answer," because I know the pain of it. And I generally believe in this idea that you can lift as you climb, you can do well as you do good. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. So I try to live my life that way. And a friend of mine recently said something, and I love the way he said it. He said that his goal is to stack as much social equity with other people, like put out these, things where people, he just pours into other people and people feel the need to get from him. And then he never asks for anything. He's like, the goal is to give, 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 and never ask. And then what happens is you kind of build up this like, community of people that want to see you do well because that's so uncommon. People are so used to people doing something for you because there's an ask coming. But when you do something for people and you don't ask, it's amazing how much of a community of supporters you can actually get around you.
I got a question for you on this one. This is
Yeah.
just personal knowledge. I've been
Yeah.
saying this for a little bit, and you are we're very close, but I'm at a 20%. So I get 80% away, and I get the 20% I ask. And the reason I do an ask is to keep value.
Mm,
So I was working for the Better Opportunity for Single Soldiers program, uh, and there was a group that on one Friday night they said free hot dogs,
mm,
and no one showed up.
mm.
The next Friday they said hot dogs $1. Everybody showed up. Man, hot dogs only $1, man.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny.
And I think there's a lesson around values there
Yeah.
of that, so that people won't just take not I won't say advantage. Advantage is too strong of a word,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
appreciate what's going on. And maybe that is the ask around, other business ventures or opportunities, and they support in other ways, so they feel that they're validating. So
Yeah.
I'd love just kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah,
Help me learn.
I think first of all, I think it's a great analogy, like a quick little like vignette of like free hot dogs. They must be terrible hot dogs. They must be bad. $1 hot dogs. We're getting the deal. Let's go. Like I can't say no to $1 hot dog. Let's go, right? So I think one of the elements is life is not black and white. It's gray, right?
Yeah.
So there are values and principles we have, but we also learn how to move with them. But the other thing is, I heard this quote recently, and I think you kind of exemplified it a little bit with that story, which is if you try to chase a butterfly, you'll never catch it.
Mhm,
But if
mhm.
you build a beautiful garden, butterflies will land on
Yeah.
you, right?
Yeah. Right.
So sometimes when you're like chasing, like I'm needy, I need something, it's like, come, 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 please, please, please. People feel that chase and they resist
Right.
it. But if
Right.
you build a beautiful garden, like we got this awesome place and we got a dope deal on hot dogs, the butterflies come to you and they're attracted to it. So there's a beautiful skill of building something that people are attracted to. With Talk It Out, we have our event feedback tool. We want, all event planners to use us as the gold standard, all speakers to use us as a gold standard of who's doing a good job. A lot of our philosophical principles is like we go after it, we hustle it, but we try to build a beautiful garden that people are like, I want to play there. I want to be there versus trying to force it. And it's not necessarily like, always the right solution, but it's just the one that typically is the one that I've played and it's the playbook I know. So I just run that play as much as I can.
Well, we talked a couple of times about Talk It Out, so let's just go there.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. I'm a user, but I'm a fan, and there's hundreds of thousands of of tools that people have used.
Mhm.
Explain to the audience that might not be familiar with your product that you and Pokin built. Um, what it does, why it's so valuable, what's the problem that it's solving,
Yeah.
and then maybe I'll ask you a little bit later on, where you see it going
Yeah.
in the near
Yeah, for
future.
sure. So, if you go on Amazon and you want to make a purchase, or if you're looking at an Airbnb and you want to stay somewhere that you've never been before or purchase something you've never purchased before, there's one singular thing that helps you feel confident in making that decision, which is reviews. If I go on Amazon and I'm like, oh, I need a set, like this just happened to me. I needed some Bluetooth speakers. I wanted to play some music. I wanted some Bluetooth speakers. I don't know anything about Bluetooth speakers, but I go online, I search Bluetooth speakers on Amazon. And if something's got 5,000 5-star reviews, I go, it's a legit set of speakers. If something has like 300 3-star reviews, I'm like, probably not going to be the one I want to take the risk on unless some reason like, compels me, but typically I won't. Now, if I'm staying in an Airbnb, same thing. If I'm staying in a place I've never been before, well, how many other people have stayed there and what are other people saying about it? That social proof gives me confidence that I'm making the right decision. However, if I'm an event planner, how do I know if someone's really good? Right? Like most event planners make decisions by committee. It's very rare it's one singular person who goes, I want John, let's hire John, let's go. Typically, it's like 5 or 6 people. So maybe you have a champion, someone who's heard about you, seen about you, listens to this podcast, but they still got to convince the committee that their choice is right because there might be 3 other choices. So what I realize is speakers don't have data. We don't do a good job of measuring our impact. We don't do a good job of measuring, well, what are people saying about me? What are the reviews? Not just qualitatively, but quantitatively. So numerically, what's the ROI of my message when I talk? So what I found is that as a speaker, even though I've been doing this for 18 years, I'm still out there putting myself out there. And, I personally don't love when I had that feeling of doing, what we as speakers sometimes refer to as the song and dance. Here's why you should book me. Here's why you should trust me. Here's why I'm going to do a good. It's like, I want you to kind of feel and know it. And then I don't want to sell you. I want you to feel like you're buying, which are two different things. People hate to be sold, but they love to buy. So, I wanted to create that experience. And I was like, well, I don't have data and I don't have numbers and I don't do surveys. And I know I should because the best speakers in the world always have data. And I was like, well, what if we can simplify that process and make it easier and actually get actual feedback from audiences and turn it into numbers, quantitative data, turn it into qualitative data, like what are people actually saying? And that's kind of how Talk It Out was born. So if I'm a speaker and I'm looking at John Register and there's 10,000 people that have said, this
6,000.
guy's valuable, this guy does a great job, and here's why. And you've got the unedited. It's not like a Google form where if you don't like something, you can edit it. This is all unedited feedback in our system. If you provide that to one of your champions who's interested in booking you, and they're going to the committee saying, here's the video, here's the website, here's the podcast, and here's the data, that becomes the kind of straw that breaks the camel's back in the positive way. And I wanted to make it easier for the right speakers to get to the right events in the right venues. And I think data is the missing piece of our industry, and we're hoping to solve that problem.
Two things. One, I have 8,000. Went up at 8,000,
But by the
10,000.
time
But
people hear this, it'll be 10,000. Don't worry.
just want to clarify that. And I like what you said about Google Forms. I did not know that. That's a really great point in there. The reason I see it as genius is there's a lot of subjectivity
Mhm.
that happens for speakers, right? And I just feel that this person would be better than the other. And so we're not really okay, but your job on the line to put this person in front, do are really going to do their homework? Are they are they really in front of all these different audiences and scoring high all the time? Because you can't fake that. Um, it's why I think that, so I'll put myself out there on this one. Uh, I don't like the subjective Olympic sports.
Mhm. Mhm.
I just, it's just not, it's look how long it took gymnastics to come to be equitable,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so now we have a team that I think is just dynamite, but it took so much of the scoring systems and a major scandal and all these things of a system that was going on to get them. And I don't want to go through all that to learn that lesson.
Mhm.
I'm more, I like the first person across the finish line, first person who touches the wall,
Mhm.
more points you put on the hoop,
Mhm.
you win.
Right.
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 And so that's what Talkabout represents to me.
Mhm.
It represents I'm going to put myself on the line in my presentation in a snapshot in real time of what this audience is thinking about, unfiltered to the best of their the best of their voting ability. They didn't go to a coffee break. They didn't get a chance to talk about the speaker or if this fit well with inside the program. It's a great snapshot in the moment of what this speaker is delivering right now.
Yeah. That's right.
And that is gold. And the first time I did it, I was here in trepidation. I had sweat pouring out of my head, sweaty. I had a towel to wipe myself down to try to go through. But the rail said, you got to do this for 2 minutes and not say nothing. Wow.
It's so interesting. I think the number one thing that I hear from, and we have thousands of users, speakers all across. And if I'm an event planner, I would ask speakers, like, let me see your talk out scores. Let me see what you've been doing. Because the number one fear speakers have is, well, what if they don't like me? Like, there's a cocoon we can live in as speakers, right? Because here's the objective truth. We've all been at a conference or an event, and there's been a speaker on the main stage, and they've sucked. But that same speaker takes a picture of themselves on the stage, puts it on the internet, puts it on their website, and goes, I spoke at fill in the blank of big name organization. Well, yeah, you spoke there, but how many events have we been at where the speaker's been terrible? Just terrible. So, yes, it's true you got on stage. And then the other thing that's kind of like the dirty little secret about our industry is you can finesse enough stages to get more stages. And there's always kind of a sucker born every day. Like I just gotta sucker you into thinking I'm actually good. And I get a couple of pictures and I get a couple of speaking engagements and I can, spend a lot of money on a website. And I can spend a lot of money on cutting up a demo video that makes me look really good because of the edits and the voiceovers and the transitions. In the
Right,
same way, we've all seen a great trailer for a movie, but a terrible
right,
movie.
right,
This is all
right.
there, but numbers are numbers. Objectivity is objectivity. So it helps someone not only go, yes, I was on a stage, and yes, I presented, and yes, here's the picture, but here is that objective snapshot
Right.
of this audience's feedback. And if it ain't real, trust me, people will tell you. People are happy to tell you when it's not good. But when it is
It's
good, you want to be able to capture that.
it's and it's helped me on this point when I had a program, man. I invited another person that I thought could book me in, and it was like the worst.
Mm,
It was one of those audiences
mm,
that I was throwing everything but the kitchen sink at them, right? And I know this stuff works. I know this stuff. I know this. That joke is a good joke. That is funny. That's serious. And they were just like, you know, deadpan water.
mm.
And it was brutal.
Yeah,
It was one of those brutal.
yeah,
So I left, I went through. I didn't want to do talk about it. I was like that they're gonna tear me up. My score is gonna go down. But
yeah.
I wound up doing it, and I had like 80. It was like 150 people in the room, 85, 81, 80, 85 filled it out. 100%. This was dynamic. It was 100%. 97% want to hear it again.
Mm,
Like, you could have told it to your face.
mm.
The person I brought in to come see me to go talk to her group, she left.
You know, there's an individual experience that I used to have enough times to relate to what you're saying before Talk It Out existed, where when we're speakers, and speakers will get this very, very deeply, you're on stage and there's a sea of faces, and you lock in on that one person who seems like they just don't care for you. They're like yawning, or their heads down, or they're on their phone texting. And early in my career, I used to like make it my, I'm like, I'm gonna win that person over.
Listen.
I'm gonna pull them in somehow, right? And then
Right.
one time I had that person who I was trying to do, and I just like, I can't reach them. And I said, you know what? I'm losing the rest of the audience because I'm trying to pander to this one person. Let me just
Right.
be the version of me I want to be for
Right.
everyone. And that person, that, you know, resting face of hate, whatever, how I interpret it, comes up to me and goes, I can't tell you how much I needed to hear what you had to say today. Like, I was going through this really tough, I'm going through this tough, and it's just everything you're saying is what I needed to hear. And I realized that oftentimes people's externalization of their face, maybe he's checking his phone because like his kid's in a
Right.
surgery
Right.
situation and they've got to keep track and they're trying to keep their family sane, but they're trying to be work, but they're hearing what you're saying. Or maybe someone's doodling. I had a young lady who was in the front row doodling the entire speaking engagement. And I was like, that golly, that's like, she just does not care for me. And she comes up to me afterwards and goes, hey, I need to doodle because that's how I focus. I was listening to everything. I loved when you talked about, she started enumerating things I talked about and said.
Yeah.
And I realize that sometimes as presenters, reading the faces of our audiences does not give us that full picture of what's landing into the hearts and the minds,
Right.
but the data does. And that's why it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's like speaker version 2.0, maybe. Was the speaker point 2.1.0 is like, they're not listening to me.
That's right.
And then
That's
2.0
right.
is, yeah, no one's listening. They're all listening, but um, I think 3.0 is they don't really care what you're saying. It's only about them and what they are hearing to
Mm,
impact their lives, right? So that's kind
mm,
of the iterations of things speaker talk and
mhm,
business. So when you look at this,
mm,
you built some new things to Talk It Out platform.
mm,
I love how I can use testimonials. Um, I can land and expand if I talk to a tech industry, and I can get out and I can share all my numbers around that tech industry. What's going on next? I mean, how do you when do we get to Malcolm Gladwell's, tipping point?
yeah. You know, our vision is so right now we have one of the largest databases of speaker data, right? Our vision is to be able to help the right events get the right speakers every time. And John Register, let's just like call a spade real quick, right? But let's talk about the reality of event planners because I've planned events. I run organizations where I book speakers as well. I'm a speaker as well. I've seen both sides of the coin. You spend months trying to find the right speaker. You spend months, weeks, hours, an incredible amount of time going, what's the vibe of my event? What's the energy of my event? Who's done well in the past? Who can we replicate without bringing the same message so that our audience feels like we're just like reusing the same thing and not innovating? We constantly, as event planners, have to find that new one. And we don't want to find the person that's been used over and over and over sometimes because we want to be innovative. But sometimes we want to use a person who's been used over and over because we know we can trust them and we have a particular budget we've got to play within. So we want to get a certain quality within the budget. All of those factors take an
Mm,
insane amount of time, effort, and energy. And after all that insane effort and energy, you can still book the wrong person. It's
right.
still possible. So what we want to do is be able to take this data and allow for whether it's an association, a business that's looking for a speaker, professional development, a bureau who's trying to bring people in. We want to be able to like based on the data, this person does really well with this group. So if you're looking for this kind of speaker, these are let's serve up to you the say 3 to 5 best speaking options. And then you can narrow down your list and do your due diligence. And then we'd love to get to the point, because we have such an incredible amount of data, that we're allowing event planners to be like, that's the right speaker. It was right. It was successful. And then you can build on that success. And then it becomes a platform that allows, imagine from an audience perspective, showing up to an event and being like, every speaker was meaningful to me. Wow, I'm coming back to this conference every single year, guaranteed. Like, we want that for our event planners, and we want speakers to be like, there's speakers right now, like, say, for example, let's say, and I'm making this up because I don't know if this is true, but let's say John Register is a perfect fit for credit union C-suite folks, that your message is exactly what they need, but you don't know about that niche, and that niche doesn't know about you. So now, like, you could be inspiring and helping all these people, but literally simply because of lack of knowledge, this, marriage of idea, talents, and opportunity is not happening. But what if we can be like, wait a minute, the data is showing that John Register is going to be excellent for these C-suite executives in the credit unions. You need to know about John, and the data says that this is going to be a good match. So getting to a place like there, it's going to take time, it's going to take energy, it's not going to happen overnight. But I'd love to get to the place where the entire events industry is elevated so that the attendees have a good experience, the event planners cut down the time and energy and money it takes to find the right person, and speakers are being fit in, they're put in where they're supposed to fit in.
Yeah. Well, you answered like 4 minor questions, so thanks for. I was gonna ask you, what do you see as the industry problems and the trends? I said, oh, you already know those things. So, I love how you have said that. So, I don't in the last time that we have here, what are some of your mantras? Even outside of professional speaking, you're an amazing family man. You have great insights on other things. You take your rest, you take your recoveries. What's the mantras that you tend to live by to kind of guide you?
Yeah, step up, set a new standard. That's my
Mhm.
that's my mantra, and it's what I say to myself every right before every speech I give. And I can do 40 to 50 a year at the pace that I'm typically at. Um, I always look in the mirror and I do the same routine. It's kind of I imagine Olympic athletes have routines to get themselves into the mindset to perform. I say step up, set a new standard. I almost say it every day. Step up means there's an opportunity in front of you. You need to step up into that opportunity and not like fall back. And set a new standard means be better doing this thing
We're
than you
so
were
close,
before. Step up,
so
set a new
close.
standard.
That's why I like you. Like, we're so close. So one of mine is
Yeah.
hashtag N1B1.
Mm,
Next one, best one.
mm, I love it. Now tell me what the first one means more. Go deep into that.
Well, it is. So I make it like a hashtag for myself. It's N1B1.
Hmm.
So that's next one, best one, and it
And
comes
oh, I thought you
from.
said end one. You're saying
Oh,
N1. Okay,
yeah,
N1
and
B1.
yeah,
I got you.
the N is in November. But where it
Yeah.
comes from is we would always have these long jump competitions, hurdle, run to the first hurdle, whatever, and when we did the last one, we'd always say next one, best one.
Hmm.
Or some people it's a variation of last one, best one, right? So
Hmm.
it's we're always thinking that we're always going our last jump, there's always something in the tank.
Hmm.
I'm down to my sixth and final jump.
Yeah.
Next one, best one. Next one, best one. Right. So we're always putting that in. So for my audience, this is who I'm serving right now. The next one, best one.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And
Right.
I don't know if I've ever shared this publicly. I saw this YouTube video like I don't even know, maybe over 10 years ago. I don't even know who said it. It was one of those like motivational voiceovers, but it deeply impacted me where if someone has heard of this, please find it and tell me who it is. But the person on the voiceover is basically saying, you never ever want to be one of those people that says, remember when. Remember when I was in high school, I was the man. Remember when, like you never want your past to be your glory. You always want the next thing you're going to do. Like you're constantly getting better, you're constantly improving, like you're constantly looking forward, to the future versus looking into the past as like the glory days or the best days. And when you said the N1B1 here, next one, best one, I think that's a wonderful way to live life because it gives you something to look forward to versus being like, oh, my best days are behind me. I'm hoping that I can live a life that no matter what age I am, like I look forward to tomorrow, because that's
Absolutely.
that's the best one. Tomorrow, that's the
Yeah.
best day.
Tomorrow's a bit, yeah, absolutely. It's an Olympic model as well with that. It's the Sidious, Altius, Fortius, swifter, higher, stronger. Those
Mm.
words not written in the superlative of the word with an ER stem ending. So it's not swiftest, highest, strongest, but swifter, higher, stronger. I can be the swiftest today. I can be swifter tomorrow. So we're
Mm.
always next one, best one,
Oof,
always.
solid
Uh,
man.
so, so I have, man, wow, I could talk to you all day. I'm not going to do it because I need to end this because I know you got to run, but
Mm.
I am going to kind of just close this out. Is there anything that I missed? How can people find you? How can uh, where's the best way to, how do we book Arel Moody to come to our group to come and speak? Because I'm telling you, man, man's been with the presidents, kings, and queens. He's been all over the place. And
Yeah, luckily, my name, Arel Moody, I'm the only Arel Moody in the whole world. Literally, no one else has that name. So if you search Arel Moody on anything, you'll find me. Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Check out Talkadot. Again, if you're an event planner listening to this, please ask your speakers. Let me see your Talkadot score. If you're a speaker listening to this and you're not using Talkadot, I'm telling you, it's going to change the game for you and make your life so much easier. And hit me up. LinkedIn is kind of where I'm probably most active nowadays. It feels to be the last oasis of social media. Like I find all the other social medias to be a little maybe they can be toxic if left to their own devices. Where LinkedIn in general is just a wonderful medium. So I tend to find I spend more of my time there socially than anywhere else.
And when you're going to talk about, please use my referral code so they can
Please,
get
in the show notes, they'll be in there.
in the
So I'm
show
sure
notes.
they'll
It'll be in
be
the
in the
show
show
notes.
notes.
um, well, thank you, sir, for being on. Blessings to you and your family. I can't wait to see you coming up. I know I'm going to date the show by saying we're going to see each other in Denver for the National Speakers Association conference. Thank you for your sponsorship of that. Just love how you have, just put yourself into the community and you're just such a giver. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap for today's episode of the Amputate to Elevate Success podcast. And I want to thank my guest, Arel Moody, for gracing us with his insights of inspiration. I'll put some of them in the show notes for sure. But wow, you need to rewind the tape, put the A track in, or push forward on the A track so you can get back to the beginning. Some of y'all know what that means. I'm your host, John Register, a professional speaker, guiding us through the transformative journeys of some of the most inspiring leaders in the business events world. Remember, it's not just about facing challenges, it's about converting them into your greatest successes. This podcast will be live on YouTube and on johnregister.com. So go over there, check it out, go get a friend, watch them, get some popcorn. It's going to be great. This was a great episode. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, go forth, inspire your world. We'll see you later. Bye for now.